My question is, what is the most inspirational comic book character to you?
The most inspirational comic book character to me. Well, I would have to say that that's interesting. Well, I'm thinking of it, I'm going to throw it back at you.
The most interesting, the most inspiring comic book
Yes.
character? Um, I would say, I don't know about inspiring is the word, but I mean, I've always been a big Wolverine fan.
Okay.
And when you talk about a character that carries a burden, first you're like, oh, I'd love to be a character that I would love to be, have that superpower, being able to heal, and then you're a badass and you got claws. But then there's he carries that at such a burden. Like literally, when you talk about how heavy, well, first of all, the process, was a harrowing experience, to get the adamantium on his bones and things like that. And it was just a traumatic experience that he carries. Plus whatever mind stuff when you get into that stuff. But also the metal actually he carries is like weighs a ridiculous amount of for him, and he literally has to, much like if you're overweight, you're carrying all this extra weight. Now imagine that's metal on your bones. So he's, and how strong does he have to be to literally carry that weight and be in pain? And also I think people don't think about when he heals whatever has happened to him, it's not that he doesn't feel it. He feels everything. Every horrible thing that's happened to his body, that he's like grown back an appendage or whatever crazy stuff that they have his superpower doing, he feels everything. And that has to be like, it's unfathomable.
So you admire his resiliency?
Absolutely.
Sure.
And to still be a good guy and not, he's a little gruff, but he's still heart of gold Logan, right? Especially I mean, you've seen the movie Logan, right?
Sure.
Like, I mean, that I think that's the best characterization of that character.
Well, when I think, now that you've thankfully given me a few moments to gather my thoughts, there's two. Number one, I believe it'd be the Silver Surfer, even though he was introduced as the Herald of Galactus, the Devourer of Worlds.
And unwilling, I believe, correct?
Yes,
like
absolutely.
he was pretty much a slave to Galactus.
As Galactus kept his wife and children. And that's right. So, however, once he was freed of that duty, he always kept above the fray. He always had an objective view, and like in the 12-step world, his real concept was to do the right thing.
And above all else, and I can't remember how he came around. It probably depends on which version of him you read. So that's interesting. I keep forgetting about Silver Surfer in that context, at least.
Yes,
it's been so long since I read that story.
Well, it was an excellent storyline, and he always attempted to do the right thing. And even though he was incredibly powerful, he didn't use that power indiscriminately or for self-gratification. And the other one I think would be Doctor Strange.
Okay.
Doctor Strange, as you know, was a physician and quite haughty and arrogant and conceited. And when he had the accident, which left him unable to perform the delicate surgery that he did before, he had this transformation, went to Tibet, wherever he went, and had this, was trained and became actually one of the protectors of Earth in the world through his mystical powers.
I always thought it was interesting, especially I thought that about a lot when they did the movie, because he was a precise practitioner with his hands, right? And then he became like a precise practitioner of the what they refer to as the arcane arts, I think. And I've read a lot in the Marvel comics over the years.
Well, actually, what we talk about again through the 12-step world, with the part of the process of working through the 12 steps, is the deflation of ego. And actually, Stephen Strange went through the same process of deflation of ego.
Well, doesn't that happen to a lot of them? I mean, Iron Man was the same kind of story, right? Like he was the high end. I can't do any wrong. Here's these war things, and then he saw, he got taken down, and again in the, if we talk about the cinematic version of it, but I think that's a version of the original story as well.
Yes.
He got to see what that is, or have to fight his way out and for his life, and that became a new mission for him. That led to everything else.
Well, the Silver Surfer always knew what was important. Stephen Strange found out what was important in his life,
Right. Right.
in the same way as the Wolverine, people like that. When we figure out what's important, then we can find our purpose.
There's always that. I always notice that pattern, and I think we talked about before. The people that do great things often have to hit rock bottom first, and those are those stories. Those are you hit rock bottom to that, but you rise up even stronger.
Well, then again, it's the 12-step concept, Mike, of surrender to win.
Absolutely.
So you admit that you're powerless over whatever particular type of thing is holding you back. And when you do, then it gives you power over it, as long as you have awareness.
Stephen Strange is, I'm powerless to bring my hands back, but what is this other thing that I can do? Where is this leading me?
Yes, and many of the comics went along that same type of vein.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Protect the weak.
Absolutely.
Stand up for the powerless.
And that seems to go along with, I know you were a big Green Lantern fan.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so we always want to be a voice for those who have no voice.
Mm-hmm.
Comics helped many people in perhaps less than admirable living conditions to escape for a while.
Oh, the dime comics, the nickel comics. That's the thing, because it was always, I'd say until the last 20 years, an affordable escapism. Correct?
Absolutely. When I first started to purchase comic books, they were 13 cents.
I think I have some that might be a quarter. Like I feel like I know I have some stuff from the early 80s. I know I have some of my sister's comics from the 70s. I wish we had the horror comics that my mom sold at the yard sale.
Many people do.
Yeah, it was especially when I see what they probably go for now. So, but my sister had all those kind of. She was a tomboy, but so like that was my introduction to comic books. Like I have a couple 70s Spider-Man issues left from her collection.
Well, they're very nice escapists, and I think the comic book that I value the most is when I was in college the first time, which didn't have a happy ending, had another agenda. Stan Lee spoke. This was back in the mid-70s. Stan Lee came and spoke, and he got held up at the airport, and he was well over an hour late. And for the people who stayed to listen to Stan Lee talk, he gave each one of us a autographed Spider-Man comic book.
That's Stan, man. That's Stan. He, if anybody was a heart of gold and on top of the business, it was that guy. That guy and Steve Wozniak, I think, are still kept. Put it boldly, I guess, still kept their soul despite their fame.
Well, and even in comic books, they reflect the changing, as we showed on a previous podcast, the zeitgeist, the mood of the time. So you're seeing comic book heroes actually have maybe disabilities, some have challenges. We're seeing comic book characters of color, of sexual orientations, and performing successfully, and most importantly, dealing with life on life's terms. Even though they're a superhero, they're talking about dealing with discrimination and bias.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even amongst themselves, right? In the day-to-day issue, I mentioned Falcon and Winter Soldier. That's dealing with that directly as well.
Yes, I remember particularly dealing with somebody one time, and their mother was an immigrant, and he said, yes, my mother was an immigrant, and she was afforded all the amenities that immigrants usually are, which meant the bias and the discrimination.
No, absolutely. So I think we just did an episode.
I think we did too. So often, one of the things when I like to talk to patients about is the literature that they like to read, because the literature that they like to read, even more than the music they like to listen to, tells me about the mindset of an individual and what they're interested in, and the type of literature such as sword and sorcery, science fiction, those type of genres. It actually provokes people into different types of thinking, different type of thought possibilities.
Very outside the box, correct?
Yes, but many of these various outside the box, like Isaac Asimov wrote a book quite a while ago called I, Robot, where he had the 3 laws of robotics. And I think Will Smith, well, I know Will Smith made a movie.
Yeah, I think that may not have been directly to text, but from what I understand, but yes,
Yes, not exactly according to the story. However, doesn't that parallel the evolution and development of artificial intelligence that we're seeing today?
yeah, yeah, it's to a point. I mean, we haven't got to the point of talking about the self realization of a robot yet, but we do have those scary Boston Dynamics ones that are dancing the Macarena or something, right? So
Well, and even in my field, which is mental health, uh, artificial intelligence is being programmed to respond to people's different words and different situations that people present, and they're using algorithms to different scenarios where the artificial intelligence can actually adapt to changing situations.
like the artificial intelligence cars that I film for one of my clients. It's
Yes.
very fascinating
Yes.
the hear and see that process a little bit, and just like they're making brains, they're making processes, they're making, they really are.
Yes, being able to send, not only being able to gather data in, but it interpret to it and change their direction and instructions based on data that's coming in, which one of the things that we always ask people is to not to have a mind of fear, but rather have a mind of awareness. And isn't this what the artificial intelligence is getting toward, to have minds actually of awareness, to be able to adapt? We always ask people to adapt. And the only thing that we actually control as human beings is our reaction to situations, our response to people, places, and things. Let's say I was an introvert and you were an extrovert, and there was a uh, there was a street fair up in Beachview, your neck of the woods. So you as an extrovert would look at that situation in an entirely different way than I as an introvert would. Still the street fair, 2 different points of view. And this is one of the reasons why eyewitness accounts are so unreliable.
I often think about how most of us in our perceptions very definitely live in a different reality from those around us. Even how you perceive everything going on, and I mean, you probably look at all the equipment and don't think of it the way I do, correct? Like I see different aspects that you don't, and the same thing when you talk to somebody in a conversation because of your skills.
Yes, yes. So, and again, it's the way we react to thing. It's the, let's say you get up in the morning and you sigh and say, "Ah, another day," or you get up and you look out the window and say, "Oh, another day."
Absolutely.
Just it's the phrasing, and again, it's the abracadabra deal, my friends, where we speak what we create what we speak.
And in closing, I think my takeaway that I want to put out there is whatever you're going through, whatever burden it's on you, at least it's not Wolverine's burden. And if he can do it, you can do it.
Yes, and as always, at the end of every podcast, we offer a free prescription: fruits, nuts, and vegetables. Unplug your television and take up fishing. And for a truly mindful experience, we suggest that you fish without bait. Do a kindness for yourself and do a kindness for another. Forgive yourself and forgive another. Till all are free, none are free. Namaste.
Please check out our website at fishingwithoutbait.com, where you can listen to the show, comment on our discussions, and find out where you can subscribe to our podcast.
If you're interested in flying the colors of Fishing Without Bait, click the shop icon on our website. We have clothing, mugs, cell phone cases, and so much more. Show the world that you fish without bait.
This show is a member of the Sorgatron Media Podcast Network. Find out more at sorgatronmedia.com.